Pep Guardiola is mad. Pep Guardiola is angry. He has one mission coming in next season, and that is taking over Premier League again, man. Because their season last year, it was not good season, especially for Manchester City, a team which has recently won the treble, and a team which won 4 Premier Leagues in a row. Finishing third in the Premier League, it was not good enough for Manchester City. And I think the bosses sit down and saw, like, we need good players, we need technical players to give to Pep Guardiola so that he can bring this team back to where it belongs. Because if I'm being honest, you look at the Manchester City signings in the last few years, they have not been those great signings. Or you look at these signings and you have a question mark. Is this guy really going to work under Pep Guardiola? Because as we all know, Pep Guardiola uses very technical players. You saw at Barcelona, he had the likes of Xavi, Iniesta, Lionel Messi. Those were very technical players, David Villa. Even his time when he was at Bayern Munich, he had good technical players. And his first years at Manchester City, his players were very technical. You look at the likes of David Silva, you had the likes of Riyad Mahrez. These guys were very technical players. But for the past couple of years, we have seen Manchester City signing players who are not very technical. They were just good physically, because that is what Pep Guardiola was told, or I think that is what he knew. For me to win the Champions League, that is something that he had to do, because he's tried to win the Champions League at Manchester City with these players who are very technical, brilliant, but when it came to the physical side of the game, he seemed to always lose to teams which were very good physically. He lost to Real Madrid, and Real Madrid, it is because they were very good physically, and mentally also know Real Madrid the way they play in the Champions League. He lost to Chelsea, and that Chelsea team in that final, it was not that it was very brilliant, no. Those Chelsea players were very physical, and Pep Guardiola, what he got right in that game, it was the tactical aspect of the game. But the physical aspect of the game, Pep Guardiola almost got everything wrong. So I think he looked at that and he said, look, I've tried winning this trophy with the most technical players in the world, the most technical players that I have at Manchester City, the most technical players that the club has provided for me. Let me try something else and get this physical players. That is why he went on and got a 6-foot striker in Haaland. He went on and get one of the most physical player in the Premier League at that time, who was Jack Grealish. You can see the legs of Jack Grealish. He has real power in his legs. That is physicality. He went on and get these physical players and brought them to Manchester City, the likes of Akanji and all those to Manchester City, so that they can help him win the Champions League, of which he won the Champions League, and he won it through a treble, winning the Premier League, winning the FA Cup, winning the Champions League. But one thing was very clear, that it was not right. It was like the flair of Pep Guardiola's game. He had lost it, and that is what has affected him last season. His flair, like the way you saw Manchester City, like when Pep Guardiola was coming in his first season or second season, it was a very different team. They really struggled when they were in possession. They really struggled to make something even when they had the ball. That is why Guardiola thought, like, I have to go back to my roots. And what are his roots? Getting very technical players. And I think that is the reason he has gotten Tijjani Reijnders. He has gotten Rayan Aït-Nouri and Rayan Cherki. And for Tijjani Reijnders, man, I understand this signing, because for the longest time, Pep Guardiola has been looking at a player to pair with Rodri in that midfield. And he has failed, man. He has gotten the likes of who? Matheus Nunes, from that time was coming from Wolves. It has failed. Calvin Phillips from Leeds to partner Rodri. It failed. And now he has tried another box-to-box midfielder from AC Milan, who is Tijjani Reijnders, and brought him into that team. And currently, we cannot see if Tijjani Reijnders will be a success or a failure, because the Premier League is very completely different from the Serie A. One thing that it is almost common in the Premier League and the Serie A, the physicality. I watch Serie A games and I watch Premier League games. The physicality is almost the same. And personally, I really love Tijjani Reijnders. I love Tijjani Reijnders. The reason why I love Tijjani Reijnders is that I've always loved AC Milan. My team is Manchester United. I support Manchester United. Everyone knows I'm a Manchester United fan, but I know, I'm very sure that every one of you is watching this. You have a team in Germany, you have a team in Spain, or either Italy, or any other league in the world that you have a soft spot for them. For me, it is AC Milan. Even if Barcelona and Real Madrid are playing, I'm really sure there's a team you're supporting in El Clasico, and maybe you are an Arsenal fan, Manchester United fan, Chelsea fan, City, Liverpool, blah blah blah, and all those teams. That is how I love Tijjani Reijnders. Watching that final in Asia against Inter Milan in that comeback, that is when I fell in love with Tijjani Reijnders. Those free kicks that he scores, the position, the way that is very industrious, very good off the ball, and when he gets the ball, it is like he can cook something. So if this signing of Tijjani Reijnders works at Manchester City, it will be a very good addition for Pep Guardiola. It will be very good because you have a player like Rodri beside him, then you have Tijjani Reijnders, and remember they have Rayan Cherki, but we'll talk about Rayan Cherki in a few minutes. You have Rayan Cherki up front, you have Tijjani Reijnders, you have Rodri. That is a very good midfield because all these players, if Pep Guardiola gives them the freedom of like get into the pitch, play by the system, but if you are in a situation that you feel like individual brilliance can work for you, just do it. That is how Tijjani Reijnders is. And I won't lie to you, I've not watched a lot of him. I've just watched the games AC Milan playing against Inter Milan in the finals or in the Serie A. But one thing I'm very sure is that if Pep Guardiola has appreciated his talent, I think Tijjani Reijnders will really work very good at Manchester City. Another kid they have gotten, it is Rayan Aït-Nouri from Wolves. And as a Premier League fan, I'll have to say one thing, man. Rayan Aït-Nouri from Wolves to Manchester City, it is a hit, because let's sit here and pretend that Rayan Aït-Nouri to Manchester City, it is not a good deal, because Liverpool wanted him. I think Manchester United at some point they were linked to him. Tottenham also are linked to him. It is just Manchester City were lucky enough, or they used their money to go and get Rayan Aït-Nouri. So let's sit here and all of a sudden start saying that Rayan Aït-Nouri is a bad player. Rayan Aït-Nouri is not a good kid. Rayan Aït-Nouri is a very brilliant kid, especially when Manchester City will be attacking. Rayan Aït-Nouri is usually very brilliant when the team is attacking. Defensively, we know he has his flaws. He's not that player who has all the awareness when it comes to defending. It is like at some point he usually forgets himself that he's supposed to defend, because Rayan Aït-Nouri loves attacking. But one thing that I think that the lack of defensive awareness will favor him at Manchester City is that Manchester City, most of the time they have the ball. Even the season when they were very bad, they had the ball most of the time. Only the problem that Manchester City had this season, it is when they had the ball, it is like they failed to create something out of it. But I think Manchester City, when they have most of the ball, and we've seen the way Pep Guardiola likes using fullbacks who really like to overlap. We saw when he had Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker was very brilliant in overlapping in that Manchester City team, and he usually like created something out of any overlap that he made, and that is Rayan Aït-Nouri. The way Rayan Aït-Nouri overlaps, it is very good, and I think it will work for Manchester City. And the lack of defensive awareness, that it is something that Manchester City and I think Pep Guardiola should be concerned about. But I think all the brilliant managers in the world, they look the strength of their players and they use them, and they look the weaknesses of the players and they try to minimize them as much as possible. Playing under Pep Guardiola is not in any way going to affect his game. Maybe he'll lack some freedom. That is what people have been talking about. We saw Jack Grealish coming from Aston Villa. He lacked that freedom. That is why people are saying Jack Grealish flopped and all that. But I think Rayan Aït-Nouri under Pep Guardiola, if Pep Guardiola can maximize his abilities and make sure that this kid plays top football, I think Rayan Aït-Nouri will go and become one of the best fullbacks in the league. The third kid that Manchester City have signed, and I'm really mad that Manchester United did not go for him. I think as a Manchester United fan this time, I think we need all the best talents available, but missing Champions League football, I think it has really affected our transfer window. But Rayan Cherki, ladies and gentlemen, is also going to Manchester City, and he'll also be in the squad of Manchester City that they'll be playing in the Club World Cup. And I think for Pep Guardiola, this one, you have got it right, mate. You have got it right. This player, that is what started this video, talking about the technical abilities. Pep Guardiola is going back to his roots, looking for technical players because of Rayan Cherki. He has gotten a technical player, a very good player who's very good technical. And that guy is Rayan Cherki, man. Rayan Cherki, we have seen in a lot of occasions this season. In that game against Manchester United, it is like every time he was forcing that Manchester United box, he was almost like making something, or he created something out of it. Either shot on target, either goal, or even an assist. That is how good Rayan Cherki is. And I really wanted this kid at Manchester United, but we got Cunha, and now Mbeumo is on the way. I'm not really mad at that. But the fact that he has gone to our rivals, Manchester City, I will not sit here and I say that I want the kid to fail. No. If he can go on and become one of the best players in the world, let him be. But the technical flair that Rayan Cherki has, man, it will work really good for Pep Guardiola if he gives him the freedom. Pep Guardiola, we've seen that he has that like character of minimizing the freedom of the players. We saw that with Riyad Mahrez at Leicester City. He was like doing everything that he wanted, but when it came to Manchester City, he was like everything that he was doing, you could see that this kid is trying to fulfill the system. Even Raheem Sterling at Liverpool and Manchester City. At Liverpool, he was that winger who really loved to cut in, but at Manchester City, he was just inside the box waiting to bang goals, and that is why he had a lot of goals at Manchester City. But if Rayan Cherki can prove to Pep Guardiola that if he's given that freedom, he can give something to Pep Guardiola, he can create something for Pep Guardiola, I think he will be given the freedom. One player who was given the freedom because he proved to Guardiola, every time that he touches the ball, it is either goal or an assist. It was Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne was given that freedom by Josep Guardiola, and I think if Rayan Cherki can do that and prove to Pep Guardiola that he can create something whenever he gets the ball, the freedom is all his. But one thing that I'm very concerned about Rayan Cherki, I think his physical ability. Physical ability is not bad, because if you talk about players with physical ability, it is the like of Jadon Sancho or maybe Rasmus Hojlund. The players who, when they are just push, they go down. For physical ability, if he gets players who are really strong, they can knock him off the ball. But if he gets a defender who is like the same size, the same height, he can still battle for the ball and get the ball and actually create something. But one thing that I've been hearing about Rayan Cherki, it is that his work rate off the ball. He's that type of player, when he has the ball, he can create something out of nothing. But if he doesn't have the ball, that is where the problem comes in with Rayan Cherki. But as I've said, a good manager is that manager who can maximize the best aspects of the game of a player and really minimize the bad aspects of the game of a player. So I think Pep Guardiola back to his roots. Manchester City signing Tijjani Reijnders, signing Rayan Aït-Nouri and signing Rayan Cherki. Very good. They're going into the Club World Cup next season. They're planning really big in the Champions League, Premier League, FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. Let me know in the comment section what you think about these moves. And Liverpool have also just signed Florian Wirtz, but we'll talk that in the next video. Peace.